Hi, I'm Brent Horning, and this is my final project for English 218, Introduction to Children's Literature, Inspiring Learning in Youth, The Phantom Toolbooth. The Phantom Toolbooth was written by Norton Juster and illustrated by Jules Pfeiffer. This is a young adult novel intended for ages 8 to 12. It was published by Yearling, an imprint of Random House Children's Books, a division of Random House LLC, a Penguin Random House company in New York. The text and illustrations were originally copywritten in 1961 and renewed in 1989. The copy I reference was republished in 1996 with an appreciation by Maurice Sendak. The Phantom Toolbooth follows young, mopey Milo on a fantastical journey through the timeless, linguistic wonderland of Dictionopolis and the surrounding terrain. With his companions Talk and the Humbug, he journeys to rescue the exiled princesses Rhyme and Reason, who can restore balance to the realm. Through the many adventures and odd characters he meets, he develops more appreciation for his life and stops taking things for granted. Milo's introduction to Dictionopolis includes his alliance with Talk, a watchdog who tells time, and the Humbug, a self-inflated, human-sized insect. Due to an accident in the word market, they are issued a 6-million-year prison sentence. Escaping turns out to be as easy as opening a door in the wall, after which they stumble into a royal banquet where words become food. In the scene after the banquet, Milo agrees to go on the perilous quest with his companions. This agreement is crossing the first threshold, as defined in the hero's journey. The scene is important because it catalyzes the journey into the underworld that will challenge Milo, Talk, and the Humbug to call upon their deepest inner resources. The backwards nature of everything informs the urgency to rescue the princesses Rhyme and Reason. When all the guests leave to go eat dinner after the banquet, King Azaz the Unabridged convinces the trio to embark on the dangerous journey. At the end, we find out, after they've returned, that it was impossible from the start. Achieving this impossible task helps to build Milo's self-esteem and confidence. The showdown is another important scene towards the end of the novel. Milo, Talk, and the Humbug are almost trapped in sensory mirages from the crotchety census-taker who guards the stairs to the floating castle in the air where the princesses are held captive. His weapon is enticement with customized sensory mirages, and the only thing that can overcome him is genuine laughter. Milo, Talk, and the Humbug reach the exiled princesses from the floating castle in the air, after which the demons in pursuit chop down the fragile staircase. When they realize that time flies, they are able to use Talk the watchdog as an airborne escape vehicle. They barely evade the frightening hordes with the aid of the armies of wisdom, led by King Azaz the Unabridged. The demons symbolize Milo's personal shortcomings, such as the threadbare excuse, a small pathetic figure whose clothes were worn and tattered, and who mumbled the same things again and again in a low but piercing voice. Well, I've been sick, but the page was torn out. I missed the bus, but no one else did it. Well, I've been sick, but the page was torn out. I missed the bus, but no one else did it. Milo's main challenge that he overcomes is his distractibility and escapism. This is symbolized by him snapping out of the mirages induced by the census-taker, directly before achieving his final goal of rescuing Rhyme and Reason. The Phantom Toolbooth is a classic in the young adult fantasy fiction genre. There are several tropes that help craft such a compelling storyline. Trope number 1, the test. There are numerous tests that the protagonist Milo goes through in his adventures. These tests force him to summon the courage and resourcefulness that was absent in his ordinary daily life. The biggest test is his journey to the castle in the air to rescue the princesses Rhyme and Reason. His cohort, the Humbug, nervously explains. From there, it's a simple matter of entering the mountains of ignorance, full of perilous pitfalls and ominous overtones, a land to which many venture and few return, and whose evil demons slither slowly from peak to peak in search of prey. Then an effortless climb up a 2,000-step circular stairway without railings in a high wind at night, for in those mountains it is always night, to the castle in the air. This test constitutes almost 2/3 of the novel and incorporates many smaller tests along the way. They are challenged by such dubious characters as the faceless Trivium, the demon of insincerity, and nearly eaten by the mountainous, gelatinous giant. This trope has the greatest impact on Milo, for it pulls him out of his depressive malaise through challenges faced head-on. A young reader may be inspired to have a similar experience, an infusion of courage to face the challenges in their own life, actively instead of passively. Trope number 2, wit and wisdom. Throughout Milo's tests, he uses wit and wisdom with varying degrees of success. Sometimes these inner resources save him, and other times he is saved by external circumstances. One successful example is his theft of a small sound from the Soundkeeper in the Silent Valley as ammunition for the muted townspeople to use in their cannon to break down the walls of her castle and restore the sounds to their valley. For example, he suddenly discovered the way he would carry his little sound from the fortress. In the instant between saying the word and before it sailed off into the air, he had clamped his lips shut, and the "but" was trapped in his mouth, all made but not spoken. Another example is during the rescue of the princesses from the castle in the air. The demons in pursuit break down the precarious staircase, eliminating all escape. "But how will we get down?" groaned the humbug, looking at the wreckage below. "There's no stairway and we're sailing higher every minute." "Well, time flies, doesn't it?" asked Milo. "On many occasions," barked Tok, jumping eagerly to his feet. "I'll take everyone down." Wit and wisdom impacts Milo by demonstrating that despite his missteps and failures, he does have inner resources that he can commandeer to save the day. This trope hopefully will have a similar effect as the test on young readers. It can encourage them to use their wits and affirm that they are intelligent. In fact, the test and wit and wisdom often go hand in hand, with wisdom being used to pass the test. Trope number 3, patterns. Throughout the novel, patterns are the most recurring trope. They regularly entice the reader into the wonderlands of reading, writing, and math. In Dictionopolis, the king's cabinet members use repetition every time they speak. "Well then," said Milo, not understanding why each one said the same thing in a slightly different way, "wouldn't it be simpler to just use one? It would certainly make more sense." "Nonsense! Ridiculous! Fantastic! Absurd! Bosh!" they chorused again and continued. "We're not interested in making sense. It's not our job," scolded the first. Another narrative pattern shows up as a confusing man who has the different titles of the giant, the midget, the fat man, and the thin man, yet looks consistently nondescript. This is captured in the 4 illustrations which are identical except for the title over the man's door. This trope keeps things consistently intriguing, reminiscent of the surreal characters and dialogue of Alice in Wonderland. It has the potential to expand the mind of the reader and create intrigue around learning and wordplay. The lesson learned in this novel is that apathetic malaise can be overcome by creativity, courage, and inventiveness. Despite our loneliness, we can find supportive allies who help us make the best of our faults. The novel holds up well since its first publication in 1961. It can be a useful tool to inspire creativity in children, and I enjoy rereading it as an adult. The wordplay might stoke interest in the subjects of math and writing, given the fantastical lands of Dictionopolis and the number-spinning mathemagician. Their narrative does perpetuate traditional gender roles, with young male Milo as the hero, rescuing the two princesses. The female characters are all in minor, supporting traditional roles, such as the wise crone, faintly macabre, who recounts the tale of the princess's exile and guides the trio to escape their 6 million-year prison sentence. The female soundkeeper hoards all the sounds until they are freed by Milo's wit and wisdom. Not surprising for the time of publication, rescuing the charming princess's rhyme and reason is the ultimate goal, maintaining stereotypical gender roles. Nonetheless, The Phantom Tollbooth remains a classic that is worth keeping on the bookshelf to inspire readers young and old. Outside influences. The Phantom Tollbooth, Beyond Expectations, from 2012, is a documentary that focuses on the serendipitous relationship between author, Norton Juster, and illustrator, Jules Feiffer. From an anonymous contributor on imdb.com, Norton calls himself an accidental writer who never set out to write a children's book. Jules had his sights set on overthrowing the government through his cartoon strip at the Village Voice. In 1961, these two young artists came together in a rundown duplex in Brooklyn Heights to create the classic that has been called the Alice in Wonderland of our time. A feature film was released in 1970, a combination of live action and animation. Time magazine's Stefan Kanfer's 1971 review states, Juster's novel, The Most Effective Wedding of Allegory and Whimsy Since Oz, failed in only one sense. Its brusque illustrations by Jules Feiffer were out of keeping with the fanciful story. The animation is a much happier complement to the adventure. There is also a theater script, which has been performed countless times. The novel has become such a beloved part of our culture, many people have chosen Feiffer's illustrations as tattoos. Typical for a reinterpreted classic, these various interpretations have mixed reviews. The feature film was a box office failure and wasn't well received, but the novel has been translated into 20 different languages and has sold over 4 million copies. The Phantom Tollbooth has proven that it can stand the test of time.